and let us continue on this mini series that I started of survival, stabilization, and today I want to touch on expansion and growth. And when I was looking at my notes, I can tell that it won't be a long video, but we'll see. I always say that this won't be a long video and it becomes long. So I want to also thank you for liking the series. You might not be commenting live on YouTube, but there's a few of you that are coming on to my email explaining that, I didn't know I'm on survival mode and you're seeking more counsel. Thank you for affirming and thank you for seeing me. And the video is getting quite a lot of views compared to the other videos. So I appreciate it. If you feel like other people should see it, do share it. Do share it. And let's see where it goes. And while I'm still on the pitchy type of thing, there's 3 more spaces before we get to number 200 subscribers. I know 200 is nothing if you look at my other social media, but for YouTube, that's big. It is a big, it is a big number because but YouTube are very, very intentional. And so I respect YouTubers very much. I'm also a YouTuber. I watch a lot of YouTube and I'm tough. I will not just subscribe. It takes me a while to click that subscribe button. So I feel you. Now, before we even get into expansion, maybe let's quickly recap, right? You would have seen the previous 2 videos. If you have not watched them, do watch them because I speak on survival mode specifically for the middle class. Why the middle class? Because it is the class that is squeezed, if you think about it, because poor people are poor people. They're in survival mode. They live from day to day. They wait for welfare. They wait for all pay, for SASA. And that's just how their life is set up. To a certain extent, their survival mode is not even survival mode anymore. It is just a way of existing. So the middle class is the tricky one because, the resources are there. There's money, there's a good job, there's a profession, there's a qualification. You have done all the things right, but somehow you are living with deep anxiety, there's panic, there's fear, there's sleepless nights, there's a lot of numbing, there's a lot that you use to cope, to escape. You don't feel like you have wiggle room to be yourself, to be curious, to take some risks, to expand and to be creative. Because a lot of people think expansion means achieving more. People think expansion means the next promotion or the next big thing or achieving something more. That's not necessarily expansion. It's part of it, but it's not necessarily expansion. It could actually be more of panic. It could be more of survival mode. And I sort of explained it better in the previous video where I spoke about stabilization. So sometimes more accumulation, more, that greed mode could be an advanced state of survival mode. So you're so panicked that you're just now hoarding. It reminds me of a Facebook post I saw sometime last year, and it shook me to the core. So the post, someone was sharing a screenshot from Twitter, from X, onto Facebook. And the person was one of those people who teach people about money. She was a money coach, or he was a money coach. I don't remember, but I know that it's a money coach person. The tweet that was screenshot said something like, I start to panic when my bank balance hit 300,000, 300K. That's when I start to panic because I'm broke. That is the tweet. And so on the Facebook post, the question was, when do you start to panic when your bank balance hits how much? And the comments, obviously I went to check the comments. Money was very 20,000, 2,000. Others were funny, obviously saying -7 rand or something like that. That's when I started to panic. But the original post made me wonder, like, so you would have 300,000. And of course, I don't know the context of the person. Maybe they are a business person. I don't know. But from the looks of it, it seemed like it was personal money. And I remember thinking, if you panic because your bank balance is now at 300,000, what will make you not panic? What will satisfy you? And I understand, guys, I can hear myself here, sorry, I'm talking probably about different levels here. But no matter who you are, no matter where you are, 300,000 in your personal account, not in savings, not in investments, not in unit trust, in your check account is not small. It's not asichalete nyane. Even 100,000 asichalete nyane. Maybe from 50, yeah, you could panic if you are a panic. I don't panic no matter how much money is in my account. Whether there's money or not, I don't panic anymore because I have a completely different relationship with money now. Story or video for another day. So I remember then thinking about that as I was making notes for this, that expansion and growth and well-being has nothing to do with money. I mean, if you think about where we are in the world, if you think about the Madlanga Commission, once I apologize, we have a fly infestation. I have a bowl here of vinegar water and just to manage them. We have a fly infestation in the Karoo in Beaufort West because we've been getting some good rains and it gets really, really, really rainy and beautiful. And then the next day when the sun comes out, all the flies and their grandmothers come out. So I apologize if Lindsay Limpona gets us sore. I don't know how many times we've been spraying. I'm now resorting to the natural way, and vinegar actually does work, eh? It does work. But I don't, you see, I lost my trail of thought, but I'll find it somewhere. The point I was trying to make is that expansion does not necessarily talk to having more things, more money. You can have those things and still remain panicked and narrow, like the Mr. 300,000 who starts to panic when that amount is in their bank account. So you start to wonder, will they ever have enough? So you know you are still in survival mode when you don't know what enough feels like, what contentment feels like. And when you start to know enough, when you start to know contentment, when you start to know some form of inner peace, you have reached a stable, so you are neither swayed by more or less. You are not panicked and reactive by uncertainty. When you get letters from HR that they're going to be retrenching, you don't panic, you don't get anxious. I mean, obviously you do worry a little bit, but it's not something that will throw you completely off kilter because you know that you live in an expansive, benevolent universe where you will always be taken care of. So that's when you've reached stabilization. Your relationship with fear changes, you're no longer fear-based, and you can really just go and watch that video because I've covered about 6 or 7 signs of how you move from how you know that you've moved from survival mode to stabilization. I did not share the how do you move from survival to stabilization, because that requires individual session, because the way you survive will be completely different to the way I survive. So it would have to be very specific to you how you move. So even if I can try to give the how, it would be way, way too generic. And when it's too generic, it just doesn't land as well. It has to hit somewhere. Oh yeah, I remember I was talking about Madlanga Commission, that the reason we are sitting at the Madlanga, we are watching the Madlanga Commission, and every week our jaws drop at just how far greed can go, where you have national commissioners, provincial commissioners, the police, in cahoots with the cartels, all for what? What is it really all for? It is all for money. It is all being driven by greed. And where does greed come from? Greed comes from survival mode. You cannot be greedy or survival mode, because when you are in stable and expansive mode, you already understand that what's yours will never miss you. What's yours will find you. What's yours will be yours, even if it takes another 2 years. You are not worried about that. But when you start to chow hospital money, when you start to loot a hospital that looks after people that look like you, then we have entered an advanced or a chronic level of survival mode. And even though it doesn't look like, I mean, look at Kate Matlal, wapara Fendi, wapara Gucci, wapara Louis Vuitton, but he's in survival mode. Are you with me, somebody? Are you with me now? So yeah, so that is the backstory of, or rather, I wanted to just give this background before I then give you the signs of expansion. And again, you cannot expand and grow when you are in survival mode. Survival mode energy does not fuel expansion, which is why if you look at most entrepreneurs, and I'm not going to say black ones, but mostly black ones, But most entrepreneurs, their businesses don't even reach 18 months these days, or if they get to 3 years, they start to collapse. It's either after 3 years, it's either you go to stable mode until year seven. From year seven, you expand. Although with time changing in 2026, I mean, since 2020, time acts differently. Things move faster, obviously, with technology. So my timelines might be off there, but there's always a survival period, which is why I said in the previous videos, survival mode itself is not a problem. The problem is living there, existing there. You cannot be in survival mode for 20 years, Bazalwan. Usaguli, usahlanyi, there's just no way. It's not meant for long term. It is short term to get you out of danger. So when you start out as an entrepreneur, you will be in survival mode for a while, where it's like, listen, hustle, 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 fight or flight, eat or be eaten. That's fine. That's fine. But then the business itself has to get to a place where it's stable. If it's not stable, it will never expand. And most entrepreneurs would try and move from survival to expansion. My hand is up. I've done that twice. Doesn't work. There has to be a period of stabilization, which maybe I'll do part two of what it means to be stable. Maybe I didn't give it enough gravitas in the previous video, but there has to be a period where it is stable. And then from stability, then we expand. It is the same with your personal life. You cannot expand and be creative and grow in many other areas unless you are stable, unless you are not in survival mode. So there's a few points or there's a few signs I want to give you that shows, or yeah, that shows that you are now entering an expansion mode. So the first sign that you are now moving from stabilization to expansion is going to show in your emotional expansion. And the person who comes to mind now, it's Trevor Noah. And I'll tell you about Trevor Noah just now. I always like to use him as well in my teachings. So emotional expansion talks to greater tolerance for uncertainty. If you can't stomach uncertainty, like if you get a letter from HR and they're like, from June 2026, we are going to be looking at reducing because AI is automating a lot of things, so we might be retrenching. If that, I mean, of course, you have to worry a little bit, but if that sense of uncertainty does not throw you out completely, you are probably you're stable enough to have other ways of looking at things. So your emotional tolerance for uncertainty expands, okay? You also have a richer emotional range. So your emotional range it's no longer fight, flight, anger, depression only. You are complex in your emotional range. You can hold fear, you can hold anger, you can hold curiosity, you can hold expansion in the same thing. So you are very nuanced about things. You know that you're entering the expansion territory. You can sit comfortably in discomfort. So in other words, after they've sent you that letter, they've emailed you that letter, you don't spiral out of control and do some stupid things like quiet quitting or missing work or it's into snacks. You still go to work, you still give them your best, you still show up as the leader that you know you are because you're expansive. You are not in survival mode. You are not spiraling out of control. You are stable. And because you're stable, you are able to be to give even more to your employer. You understand beyond just yourself. Okay, so the other expansion is the relational expansion, and this is where Trevor Noah comes in. So with relational expansion, because you are not in survival mode, because you are not in me, it's about me, you have time to spend with the people that you claim to love, your friends. You are able to invest time and money. Yes, expansion does include money, not always, but when there's money, it's even better, right? So relational expansion is taking deep care for your relationships, giving them your all, investing in them, investing time, and being open and being very vulnerable. You're not hiding, you're not performing, you are really in there. And why Trevor Noah comes to mind is because I don't know if you've noticed, it's not lately, I think 2 years ago, he started being very, very speaking very openly and consciously about his friendships. And yeah, Nali Simon Sinek, they would have these conversations about friends and love and vulnerability and being seen and intimacy with friendships. And that's relational expansion. People in survival mode, our friendships are very shallow. Our friendships are about, hey, Zkipani, or what do you have? How can I match that? How can I compete? It's very brush. It's not real. It's not real. And when I think about people that, in my opinion, are in that expansive space, and if you think of their friendships or the people they spend time with, you can see that they pour into each other. Trevor Noah being an example. I'm sure you can think of other examples. Obviously, Mama Oprah and Gail. And there's many others that you can think of. Yeah, you can comment if you can think of others. So relational expansion when you are not in survival mode. I bet you didn't think how it will get here, ne? And the third thing is existential expansion. So it's when you are concerned with a calling, concerned with a purpose in your life, when you are concerned with things of deep meaning, when you are concerned with contributing meaningfully to communities, to schools, to clubs, when you are in let us build mode, let us build something that we can leave for the future generations. Let us plant more trees. Let us, so your thinking and your existential self expansion is beyond you. So the thing with expansion, with not being in survival mode, is that it stops being about you. It becomes about others and more. It's about giving, it's about generosity. You can never be generous in survival mode. Survival mode get transactional. Give me, take, I take. Sorry, I just had a funny picture in my mind. So it's about deeper meaning beyond the survival of one. If you find yourself creating collective things with Stockfella, okay, Stockfella is actually a perfect example. Most Stockfells that started in 2016 are nowhere to be found because a lot of them were started with that energy of survival mode, very short-termism. And even those that are still standing today, including our Stockfell Fall Peak, a lot of our members we lost along the way. So the sense of building is not there because you are where you are in survival mode. Businesses that are started in survival mode, like I made the example, they fall. You can't expand in survival mode. Yeah, so expansion can express itself in many non-financial ways. For an example, you could take a sabbatical for a year and travel and or take a break and I'm just gonna sit at home and fix our garden and start a project at the house. And yes, I understand that requires money. You would have been in a stable, you would have moved from survival mode and became stable. In stability, you are able to invest, you're able to save. Maybe you've been stable for about 3, 5 years, you've saved quite a lot, you've invested, and then you have money, enough money to say, I can take a year off, and then you do whatever, you travel, you do your projects. That's what expansion sometimes expresses itself in. How many people do that? Very few, because a lot of people are in survival mode. Another way of expressing expansion is in creative pursuits, where you go for piano lesson, guitar lessons, dance lessons, painting lessons, writing a book, writing lessons. You go to your work on weekends, you spend in a creative space. You're not spending in binging, in drinking, in watching, in being a zombie. You are creatively expressing. You have the energy to do that. Sometimes you're not learning only, you are also contributing. Maybe you're teaching children how to read. Maybe you started a book club where you are doing something meaningful with your time. That's expansive energy because you never know what that book club is going to be and what it's going to turn into. It is a giving, a generous energy. And it happens only when you are in expansive mode, not in survival mode. In survival mode, you can start it, it will fall. Won't last. Because you don't have the energy for it. You don't have the fuel for it. Are you with me, somebody? So learning and mastery, I've just alluded to that. You have time and energy to learn. You can attend a course. You can do stretch school content without, because it's, it requires a lot out of you. You can do it because you're in expansive mode and you want to grow. You're in growth mode, okay? And you want to expand your inner self. You want to look deeper. You have time for that because you are not in survival mode. And you can also do some deep, expansive physical challenge where you start to run if you're a runner. Of course, if you're a runner. If you're not a runner, please do other things. You can do marathons and start running, and then you start doing 2 oceans, and you do the half a marathon, and before you know it, you do comrades, and then outside comrades to expand, you do the Boston to New York marathon, you do the London marathon. That's someone who's expanding. That's someone who's expanding. They're not living for the weekend. They're doing something absolutely meaningful that fulfills their heart, that gives to their soul, that also contributes to other people's lives. That is expansion, my friends. I hope, let me see, anything else? No, nothing much, except, also you tend to see nature slightly differently. You see nature as a big part of who you are, see it as a living, breathing organism. Your appreciation for animals, you might, don't be surprised if you now suddenly have a pet or a few pets, or in my case, 4 cats. But yeah, expansion space is a beautiful, beautiful space where you feel literally alive. You don't feel like you're a cog in the big clock, your machine that needs to produce, 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 and then collapse on a Friday evening. It's deep, deep stuff. And I wish you nothing but expansion, stability, and then expansion. Survival mode must fall. It must fall. You have to find a way of getting out of survival mode the best way that you know how. And if you are ready, I am available as usual. And this is my story. I cannot wait to hear yours.